And then down in North Carolina, you had another bill there signed by Pat McCrory, who's the Republican governor, up for re-election this year. It basically requires transgender people to use restrooms corresponding to the gender on their birth certificate.
What does that mean? They have to take a birth certificate into the restroom?
Well, this was designed to essentially reverse civil rights legislation that had been passed in the city of Charlotte that would allow a transgender person to basically choose whichever one to go into. There was concern among some Republican legislators about this. They pushed that bill through pretty quickly, and the governor signed it with very little notice. The ACLU and other groups now very upset about this, going to try to challenge it. Again, the business community has stepped in. Bank of America, major employer in Charlotte, opposed to this. American Airlines, which employs 14,000 people in the state, a big hub there at the Charlotte airport, says they're upset about it as well. He's standing by this, the governor is. Signed it, he says, quote, to stop the breach of privacy and etiquette, unquote.
It's fascinating what they did in this law in North Carolina, and they did it very quickly. They called an emergency session within one day. This was passed and signed by the governor.
Why an emergency session?
This became a concern primarily over bathrooms and primarily over exposure of children in schools, this kind of thing. But we've seen this concern before from the right, and we've seen it in the 1980s with the Equal Rights Amendment. That was almost passed, but it was blocked in a sense by this argument that, we'll have unisex bathrooms. Now, you can argue whether or not that was true. A lot of people say that was a false flag argument. But in this case, what happened here was based on this rising tide of concern over bathroom usage. And, of course, many progressives in North Carolina think this is ridiculous. And many conservatives are worried about kids in school. But I want to point out, Diane, that this actually goes farther than just bathroom uses. What happened in North Carolina is they changed their entire discrimination law in order to do this. They changed it. Now it says that in North Carolina, you cannot discriminate on race, and it adds the word biological in front of the word sex. So that means it does not, it does clearly allow for discrimination based on sexual preference or sexual choice. On transgender. Now, it's saying that we can only outlaw discrimination on biological sex. It's tightening the laws on discrimination.
Right. It's a reaction to the cultural either misgivings or hesitancy that are raised by the transgender revolution is probably too strong a word, but transgender identity and its more acceptable conversation in the country now and its application in law, which is new. I mean, we have to acknowledge this is a new conversation our country is having. And progressives were a part of the conversation for a long time. Most of America was not. And there is a gap between understanding. You talk to your friends about it. There is a general unaware. I'll just say my friends. They're like, what is this all about?
Yeah.
What is the difference between biology and later in life identity and how you recognize yourself?
But
the collision with law and culture is showing itself up in North Carolina, and this attempt to place biological definitions is a retrenchment reaction against that.
What I need to understand is somebody going to be standing at the restroom door and asking for ID?
Well, maybe not a law enforcement official, but I wouldn't be surprised if we eventually hear of a case where somebody was sort of standing guard or looking for it in some neighborhood somewhere in this country. I mean,